In the deep reaches of space, on the forgotten colony planet of Caldara, the human resistance prepared for what was likely their final battle. The Exilreth Dominion, a race of merciless conquerors, had swept through the galaxy, eradicating civilizations and enslaving species one by one. Caldara was their last stop before reaching Earth. Captain Mara Harlan stood on the cliffs overlooking the city below, her worn battle armor a testament to the years of war. Behind her, the remnants of the human resistance readied themselves. Farmers turned soldiers, engineers repurposed as weapons specialists, and medics now forced to become frontline fighters. They were a ragtag bunch, but Mara believed in them. She had no choice. A voice crackled over her comms unit. "Captain, they're coming. The Exilreth fleet is on the horizon." Mara took a deep breath and turned to face the resistance forces gathered before her. Some of them were too young to fight, barely old enough to have seen a world without war. Others were grizzled veterans of battles long past. But every single one of them shared the same look in their eyes, a mix of fear, determination, and defiance. "They want us to believe this is the end," Mara called out, her voice carrying over the crowd. "They think we're weak, that we'll break like all the others they've conquered. But they're wrong. We are human, and we fight for something more than survival. We fight for each other, for the ones we've lost, for the ones we still protect, and for the home we'll never give up." The soldiers raised their weapons, the steel of their guns gleaming under the pale Calderan sun. It was an uneven fight, and everyone knew it. The Exilreth army was an overwhelming force, thousands of warships, millions of foot soldiers, and technology that far surpassed anything the humans could hope to match. But the humans had something the Exilreth couldn't understand: the unyielding human spirit. Mara's second-in-command, Lieutenant Kieran Rowe, approached her as the troops began moving into their defensive positions. "Do you really think we can hold them off?" Mara glanced at him, the weight of leadership pressing heavily on her shoulders. "We don't have to hold them off forever. Just long enough for Earth to prepare. Long enough to make them think twice about attacking our home." Kieran nodded, though doubt flickered across his face. "And what about Caldara? What about our people here?" Mara paused, her gaze drifting back to the horizon where the first flashes of the Exilreth warships appeared, shimmering like distant stars. "We protect what we can. We fight for every inch. And we make sure they remember us." The ground trembled as the Exilreth ships descended through the atmosphere. The alien army landed in droves, their black, insectoid exoskeletons glistening in the harsh light. Their eyes were cold, emotionless, as they advanced in perfect unison, a wave of destruction that had laid waste to countless worlds. Mara watched them, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt the fear creeping in, the knowledge that this battle might very well be her last. But she pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. The humans had set traps all along the cliffs, hidden explosives, EMP mines, anything they could scrape together in the final days of preparation. The first wave of Exilreth warriors hit the traps, the explosions ripping through their ranks. But the aliens didn't falter. They moved as if the losses didn't matter, their numbers seemingly endless. Human snipers fired from the cliffs, taking down as many as they could, but for every Exilreth that fell, another two appeared to take its place. Mara raised her weapon, signaling for the soldiers to open fire. A wall of gunfire erupted from the human lines, the resistance forces pouring everything they had into the advancing horde. The Exilreth shields flared, absorbing most of the hits, but the sheer volume of firepower slowed them down, if only for a moment. Kieran stood beside Mara, his pulse rifle blazing. "This isn't enough. They're going to overwhelm us." Mara's jaw clenched. "We have to hold them off. Just a little longer." As the battle raged, something inside Mara began to shift. It wasn't just the desperation of the situation, it was a deep, instinctual feeling, a connection to something greater than herself. She'd fought alongside her people for years, seen their resilience, their strength. But today felt different. Today, they weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something more, an idea, a belief that humanity was worth defending no matter the cost. The Exelreth pushed closer, their weapons ripping through the human defenses. Mara could see her soldiers falling, one by one, but they didn't retreat. They fought on, knowing full well that victory was impossible. And yet, in that impossible moment, something happened. A brilliant light erupted from the heart of the human lines. Mara turned, her breath catching in her throat. It was one of the engineers, Dr. Adrian Weiss, the man responsible for repurposing old tech into makeshift weapons. He had rigged together an energy device, something so experimental that they hadn't even been sure it would work. But now it was glowing, pulsing with power. "Wes, what the hell is that?" Mara shouted over the comms. Weiss's voice came back, strained but determined. "It's a localized energy disruptor. It's not fully tested, but it might just be enough to destabilize their shields. We've got one shot." Mara's mind raced. "Do it! Now!" Weiss activated the device, and a shockwave of energy rippled across the battlefield. The Exelrith shields flickered, then collapsed, leaving the alien soldiers vulnerable for the first time. The humans seized the moment. Mara led the charge, her soldiers rallying behind her, pushing forward with everything they had. They tore into the Exelreth ranks, fighting with a ferocity that defied reason. It wasn't just about victory anymore, it was about proving, once and for all, that humanity could not be crushed. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they would fight. Mara's pulse rifle ran dry, and she switched to her blade, cutting down the Exelrith soldiers one by one. The battlefield was chaos, a swirling maelstrom of fire and blood. But amidst the carnage, something incredible happened. The Exelreth began to retreat. It wasn't much, just a small step back, a hesitation in their advance. But it was enough. The humans had done the impossible. They had made the invincible enemy bleed. As the Exelreth forces withdrew, Mara collapsed to her knees, her body aching, her breath ragged. Around her, the surviving soldiers cheered, their cries of victory echoing across the cliffs. Caldara still stood. Kieran knelt beside her, his face covered in grime but lit with a wide grin. "We did it. We actually did it." Mara shook her head, still trying to process what had just happened. "No, we didn't win. We just bought time." "But we made them retreat," Kieran argued. "We showed them what we're capable of." Mara smiled faintly, the weight of the moment settling in. "Yeah, we did. And now they'll never forget what happens when you push humans too far." The Exelreth may have left Caldara for now, but the battle was far from over. Earth was still out there, and the war would continue. But today the humans had shown the galaxy something extraordinary. They weren't just survivors. They were fighters, warriors who could stand toe-to-toe with the strongest in the universe. Mara stood, wiping the blood from her blade. "Let them come. We'll be ready."